Hello everyone and welcome back. Today's video is going to be about the resurrection. Yes, the resurrection. Not the fictional thing that everybody's probably, well, all Christians are probably celebrating today, but the movie, The Resurrection by Mel Gibson. Yes, Mel Gibson, who created the movie back in 2004 called The Passion of the Christ, is throwing his hand into the money pot again, and he's going to pull out the resurrection. And I think it's supposed to be released in 2027. It is definitely a movie that I will not be watching. So its premise is focused on the Ethiopian Bible. And I got some video clips I'm going to share over here, and I'm hoping the audio carries over because, like I said, I'm still testing this service of StreamYard, and I only have 2 hours of free videos with it, and then I'd have to upgrade. So I want to test it before any of that takes place. So let me get right into it, because the premise of his movie, The Resurrection, is based on the Ethiopian Bible, which he has read. Now, which he says he has read multiple times. I like Mel Gibson as an actor. He's made a lot of good movies, but these movies are, he's throwing his hand into the Christian money pot. And it's off of, as we know, that I don't believe that Jesus ever existed. Jesus is fake and the Bible's a fraud. Confirm that to yourself mentally every day. The books that are out there, many people don't. I was just in a conversation. I'll finish that sentence in a minute. Many people don't believe that the Bible was any bigger than what it is right now. And that is a misnomer. That is, again, is more gaslighting. It's social engineering is what it is. And what is social engineering? It is where they keep on repeating the same narrative over and over to make you believe in that narrative. It's gaslighting. It is propaganda. It is indoctrination, whatever you want to call it. The government uses it. The churches use it. It is a bind on your mind that must be broken for you to be free. I've said this in the past, free your mind, your body will follow. So the Ethiopian Bible is out there, and in it is the movie that Mel Gibson is basing his movie on. Also, another one that is good that I've read, and I have used it as a source, is the Forbidden Books of the Original New Testament by William Wake. This is a free download on Kindle. If you have Kindle, you can get it as a free download to your Kindle and read it. In that collection of books, it has the childhood of Jesus. It has how Joseph was much older than Mary, already had been married and his wife died. He was a widower. He had children, and his children were older than Mary, and he didn't want to marry Mary, but he was convinced to. I'll get into all that in a moment, because there's a document I'm going to read to you. And it's got other books. In those books, the Forbidden Books, Jesus was an SOB. He was a little punk that deserved to be tuned up if he was real. Obviously, you can't beat up a tooth fairy. So he had killed a child. He had to be put basically under house arrest. His parents had to keep him isolated from the public because there it all is. And why is that important? Because those were taught as the official Bible until the 12th century. So all the way up until 1100 of the Common Era, those were the texts that were being used to force convert our northern pagan ancestors to their religious subjugation system. So that's, once you realize that these texts were something that our ancestry had to tolerate, if you will, all of this nonsense. And another one that we've used in our books is the Nag Hammadi Library. So there's a lot that is out there that used to be in the called the Bible that is no longer there and is pretended that it doesn't exist, or they try to make excuses to wash it away. And this Ethiopian Bible is one of them. Now, one of the things that they say in these YouTube videos that are advertising this movie and that new Ethiopian Bible, it's not new, they say it's 2,000 years old. And therein is the fact of the matter, is it's only 2,000 years old. Before that, it wasn't there, but our ancestors were. So this we have to keep in mind. All of this is said to be real. It's said to actually have happened, and that Jesus is real, and the crucifixion and the resurrection are real, and it's going to be end times and Armageddon. And they say that's all real. It's all literal. And it wasn't to our pagan ancestors who predated this nonsense. I was going to say a compound word there, that BS. So let's get right into this now that I've said some of the sources of the book. There's 2 videos. I'm going to be pausing them, interjecting some different things. So the first one is we are going to look at, remove that, add this. All right, now, here we go. Let me play this video, and I already have them all set up for time marks. So
walk into an Ethiopian Orthodox church today. You will not see the Jesus of Western Renaissance painting. You will see Jesus Christos, Lord of the universe, dark-skinned, deep-eyed, surrounded by gold that represents divine fire, fully human and fully cosmic, not softened for accessibility. The Jesus that 1 billion people carry in their minds was shaped not by the oldest sources, but by the sources that survived the purge.
I agree.
The original portrait, preserved by Ethiopian monks, looks almost nothing like that.
So there we have it. The books that survived the purge. And what does, when he said the minds of Christians, that Zionists and Catholics, the minds of Christians are not shaped by the oldest writings. They're shaped by the ones that got sanctioned to be in there, sanctioned over the course of time, because as I pointed out from the forbidden books, different books were removed when they were perceived to be a problem to their subjugation religion. So I'm going to read to you, because I have been taking college classes, and one of the classes that I took about a year ago, that's why I've been so busy lately, is that's one of my irons in the fire, is I've been taking college classes. And one of the classes that I took was African American history. And as a pagan going into this, I had a different viewpoint than what a lot of people did, my classmates and the professor. So here is what he gave as an assignment, and I don't know why it's showing that. There we go. Let me add that to here. There we go. All right, so what we have is, I'm going to make this full screen so I can read it. There we go. This is, the top part is his assignment. You'll see I have the different things highlighted that I wanted to make sure I commented on. He says, dig it. The probably deliberate whitewashing of the Bible is such that most people, Black Christians included, think of the Bible's main character as light complected or even white, but they were Mediterranean and they were dark, and many were dark. The Queen of Sheba, often called the Queen of Sheba, it's actually Sheba. I've discussed a lot of these things in previous videos, was one such person as she was, as probably was Solomon. So he's saying probably Solomon was probably dark-skinned as well. Read the Song of Solomon and see how he describes his wife. What I want to discuss is, those of you who consider yourselves Christian or Jewish or Muslim, how do you see these characters in the religious books? The Torah or the Bible or Quran as white people we should follow, or as those from our own lineage and ethnicity. How white is your Christ? And for those who aren't religious, the same questions. How do you see the Semitic religious leaders of these faiths, as white or other? Why? So now this goes back to that portion I just played in that video, where in the Ethiopian Bible, in those areas where they still participate on the basis of that Bible, that Jesus figure is displayed as dark skinned. So I'm going to go into my answer here. That's what I wanted to read you. I just wanted to preface it with what the question was. I believe the biblical character called Jesus never existed. I also believe the Bible is a fraud. See, I carry that same message all the time. A depraved, disgusting collection of documents written by depraved people. That said, I know others don't believe as I do. To that end, I was talking with a blonde-haired, blue-eyes woman not too long ago, wherein I asked her point blank to describe Jesus to me. She answered that he had blonde hair and blue eyes. My reply to her was, look in the mirror, you see your Jesus. What color were they? Everyone should be screaming that they are thankful it's mythology. I apologize in advance for the length of this answer, but I must be thorough to support my answer to the why part of this question. The religious cults of Abraham were forced upon every non-Abrahamic pagan people on a global scale. It is a false narrative which paints any sort of picture that conversions were peaceful. The Old Testament states how the Israelites slaughtered millions simply because they weren't believers in their God, which Israel is the only area which is allowed to define its borders based on a religious text. And as far as the United States of America defending them with Goy blood on the altar of Abraham, that violates the separation of church and state. I digress. The violence and depravity is embedded into the cores of those three beliefs, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, throughout their history until present day. What color is a Skogra, a Huldra, the Tooth Fairy, the Sandman, Lilith, trolls, the hare that was beaten by the tortoise? And I'm going to add that. What color was the Easter Bunny? And my wife and I had a good laugh about this because we said, well, the Easter Bunny is white. And how do we know it's white? Because it was in that TV commercial advertising those candy eggs. So anyway, that's just a little aside. I didn't put that in my. So what color were they? That is the amazing thing about mythical figures. They can be manipulated in appearance to fit the target audience to make them more acceptable. Who are you talking to is what color they are, what language they speak, what dress they wear, all of that. It's a marketing scheme is all it is. I do not know why any color, ethnicity, nation, people, group, or individual person would want to lay claim to the depravity that is those cults of Abraham, individually or collectively. Mythologically speaking, what color was the eternal Virgin Mary? First, the Jewish temple forbade girls from having their menstrual cycle while in the service of the temple. It was seen as defiling the temple. Thus, Mary was cast out of the temple at 12 years of age before her cycle began. Joseph, if one reads the sanctioned version of the Bibles in the 12th century, that's where I was talking about the forbidden text of the original New Testament, was a widower who had children, all of whom were older than Mary. Thus, he didn't want her. After being convinced to take her as wife, Joseph goes away to work, and 12-year-old Virgin Mary gets impregnated by a ghost called the Holy Ghost or Spirit. To make this even more comical, throughout the Bible, the Holy Spirit is referred to as feminine with feminine pronouns and called Sophia. Thus, a female ghost got a 12-year-old virgin pregnant. Consent is not mentioned in the affirmative or negative, and we're to wonder what color she was. Then I go into Shiva, David and Solomon, which I covered in another video. It's not the Queen of Sheba, it's Queen Sheba. So Solomon and his own mother got it on. So, and then as well, I go into Lot in another video as well as Moses, and there's a lot of incestual depravity. So at the very end, I ask now, what color were they? Does it really matter what color they are when, one, it's all fictional? It's all fictional. And additionally, when it's that depraved, who would want to lay claim to it? I mean, no. That's not me. That's not me. That's not my ethnicity. That's not the region where I come from. You can have it. You can have it. I don't want it. So that's that part. I got some notes. Let's go on here. We're gonna go to the next video. I'm gonna tag these videos. So if you want to watch them in your entirety, and unfortunately, I'm gonna have to say this, I'm gonna have to buy the Ethiopian Bible. I'm gonna have to. I've got added to my collection of junk paper, if you will. I've got the Apocrypha. I've got all those other books that I mentioned. I'm going to have to get this one to them and see what it says. That's aside from the short little video clips that they're putting on here. But we have more to get into, and we're going to go to the other video. Let's see here. Let me get over there first, because I can close that one right out now. All right. Let's see what we got. Screen share. And here we go. Right there. Another one by Mel Gibson. Let me get my homework off of there. I was supposed to be taking homework over there. I'll get to it. Hang on. Give me a second here. There we go. All right. I'm going to play this video. And this one here is about not even a minute and a half. And then it's talking about the end times, Armageddon. Here we go. Let's get into this here. From 3 minutes and 9 seconds to 4:36. That's why I keep wiggling my mouse, in case you're wondering why I'm doing that, so I can see the
times, as described in the Ethiopian Bible, are not the familiar narrative of external cataclysms and a singular antichrist. Instead, they describe a series of spiritual conditions unfolding inside humanity. This reframing changes everything. It moves the end times from a distant future catastrophe to an ongoing spiritual reality that we are experiencing collectively and individually right now. The Ethiopian texts describe this final age in 4 distinct stages. The first is the age of forgetting, where humanity gradually stops seeking truth. Truth becomes inconvenient, and the quiet erosion of spiritual inquiry sets in. This is followed by the age of spectacle, where noise and entertainment replace wisdom. Civilization loses its capacity for stillness, drowning deep thought in constant stimulation. Then comes the hardest stage to recognize, the age of the false shepherd. Here, corrupt leaders arise not from outside the faith, but from within religious institutions themselves. They use sacred language and faith to justify the accumulation of secular power and wealth. Finally, if these stages are left unchecked, humanity enters the great silence. This is the most dangerous moment, when human hearts become so cold that the connection between heaven and earth grows thin. Even genuine seekers can barely feel the divine presence.
Okay, so what we have is every culture, every single culture since the invention of these Abrahamic cults, namely Christianity, because they're the ones that talk about the end times. Every single culture has said they're in the end times, including this current culture. So it's when the video says about some future event, that mindset has been there since the Christian cult was invented. The lights and bulbs, I've discussed these distractions. They have been around for a long time. They are meant to keep the seeker mentally occupied, audibly, everything, emotionally. It's all to keep you distracted from a higher self, from recognizing that that Jesus is fake and the Bible is a fraud. So this higher self. Now, I don't disagree with everything that's being put out in this video, because these are traps, techniques used by the religious cults of Abraham to enslave the mind. So while they're right in the premise of what they're saying, they attribute it to a false, fake entity. You might as well say that this was Santa Claus and he's coming back. Yep, sure is. Santa Claus is coming back. So is a tooth fairy if you pull out a tooth and put it under your pillow. So those four elements right there are part of normal Christian belief that in every generation. So let's continue, because we're going to pick up right where we left off there. Go back to my. All right, this one's going to be about another minute and a half here. So let's go. This is about the 7 seals. We're going to break open them 7 seals and see what they bring us.
But the Ethiopian Bible doesn't just diagnose the condition of the world. It reveals the inner battle each individual must face. It reinterprets the 7 seals of Revelation not as cosmic events, but as internal barriers within the human heart. There is the seal of comfort, which avoids truth because it feels disruptive.
Avoids truth. Very important. And what we've been putting out on our channel and in our books is that the truth of the matter is Jesus is a fake and the Bible's a fraud. That true spirituality and a true belief system builds the person up. That is what our ancient northern pagan ancestors and our ancient northern pagan belief system did. It built up the individual by putting people in touch with the spirit of strength, Thor, the spirit of wisdom, Mother Goddess Freya, the natural occurrences of life. These are truths that the religious cults of Abraham take away. So let's go on to the next seal.
The seal of pride, where certainty halts learning.
We have the one true God. We have the one true God. Without any other God, without me, there is no other gods. That's what the Bible says. And Christians regurgitate like a mantra that they believe in the one true God. Pride. It halts learning.
The seal of fear, where we ignore truth to feel safe.
Because if they acknowledge that Jesus is fake and the Bible is a fraud, now they are so full of fear of eternal damnation with fire and brimstone. That was only made literal by Augustine of Hippo, also called Saint Augustine. Well, let's continue.
The seal of distraction, which leaves no room for stillness.
Already discussed that.
The seal of false community, where echo chamber.
Yes. And that's just what Christianity is. That's what all of these religious cults are. They're echo chambers. Anything outside their own little echo chamber, it disrupts their ability to feel secure in that little community that they have right there. And that community is not what is portrayed to be. It's very backbiting. It's very vicious. Continuing.
Prevent real truth from entering. Mm-hmm. The seal of false mercy, where forgiveness becomes an excuse to avoid growth. Yep. And finally, and not only that, but forgiveness is bunk to Christianity, because with forgiveness means that you forget it. It is gone. Well, maybe you don't forget it, but that means it's like it didn't even happen. So this whole thing of Christian forgiveness is bunk, because while they may chant about forgiveness, just look at what's going on with Charlie Kirk and Erica. She went on there and said that she forgave the pseudo shooter, which now there's a whole bunch of information out there. I don't know if you know, there's a whole bunch of information out there that the gun doesn't match the bullet, and there's other DNA and other fingerprints on the gun. And that whole case is it's not the way it should be, trust me. But she went on there and forgave him, allegedly,
for being the shooter when he probably wasn't even a shooter. And I'm just going to say probably because I'm not looking at all the facts, but apparently they didn't either. So let's continue on to the last one they're going to talk about here.
Most dangerous, the seal of religion, where sacred rituals and words mask a lifeless faith. Breaking through these seals does not lead to external signs of power. It leads to becoming the spark of awakening the world needs. This awakening is urgently needed because the texts also warn of a final empire. Described in the Discalia, this empire is not defined by a nation or army, but by a vast, subtle system of control. Its power lies not in chains, but in comfort, bread.
Bread and circuses. That was going to start an ad there, so maybe I just paused it right at the right time. That's what he was about to say. He was about to say it relies in bread and circuses. So there is a final section that I'm going to fast forward to on that video. So just give me a second. And it is at 6 minutes and 2 seconds. Well, let me take that off of there. I'll get to the video after the ad because I'm sure you don't want to have to sit there and listen to the ad play. Mute my speaker over here. But that's what it all Christianity really is it's a bread and circuses, keep the minds of the people involved in that occupied in the own echo chamber of the religion. You don't think outside of that, and don't look at the fact that a lot of these big churches are being said now to have pedophilia organizations within them. Hello, Jeffrey Epstein. So welcome to the game there, Christianity. Well, not welcome to the game. Welcome back to the game. So, all right, this last clip, then before I show a picture, is about the seeker. So let me add that back in. And we're going to play it right from here. The seeker. This one's less than a minute. Whoops. Hang on a minute. Let me unmute the speaker again. I hope the audio is coming out in this okay. Let me see. We're going to go right there. All right.
The text blesses those who see the cage and still choose love and truth despite the false abundance. In response to this empire, the Ethiopian Bible preserves a final prophecy of Jesus, omitted from the Western canon. It speaks of the final witness. This is not a supernatural sign or a single prophet. It is a generation of ordinary people who rise up in the darkness and refuse to be silent. They face ridicule and erasure from the powerful, but their voices are heard in the hearts of those ready to listen. Truth, the prophecy reminds us, does not need public platforms. It thrives in the readiness of the listener. The suppression of this prophecy was deliberate. It threatened the very architecture of institutional power, revealing that the greatest danger to spiritual control is not external rebellion, but an awakened populace that can recognize false prophets arising from within their own churches.
Not only false prophets, but false religions. And that is what we have here. We have a false religion, and people are waking up to that. The Abrahamic cults are depraved. It's a text that was forced upon us and forced upon our northern pagan ancestors. So, as you know, I have been putting out that Jesus is a symbol. None of this, I don't believe in the Ethiopian Bible any more than I believe in the forbidden books of the original New Testament, any more than I believe in what we have now as a Bible. The whole thing is bunk. The whole thing is a fraud. It's meant to enslave the mind, and it's meant to enslave the body and subjugate, get you into the rhythm of being on your knees. Whether it's to their false king called Jesus or their false god called Elohim, which is plural throughout the entire Old Testament. I point that out in our books. And to an actual human being. It programs you to be on your knees, begging for someone else to save you, which is completely opposite of what our ancestral paganism teaches us. So I have been showing that this crucifixion and resurrection and all this Jesus on the cross is a symbolism of woman, the feminine, the divine feminine. Patriarchal cults were coming in and they were displanting, usurping the ancient belief system, the matriarchal ancient belief system of our pagan ancestors. Now, I want to show you something this is just a quick still frame, and right here. All right, let me put that up on the screen. All right. Where is it?
Prophecy.
There we go. Let's see if that shows up now. There we go. What do you see there? Well, what did you see there? I don't know why it keeps taking it off here. Let's see.
They are news headlines.
There we go. See, is that working any better? This is going to mess with me. What I see is not there anymore. Well, you saw it briefly. It is a picture of the Yoni. That is the Yoni. That is the feminine triangle.
The age of forgetting, the spectacle, the rise of false shepherds.
Okay. Well, you saw it. I can't keep it up there for whatever reason. It keeps taking it off, but maybe it doesn't want me to share it anymore. Who knows? Jesus is fake. The Bible's a fraud. This new movie that's coming out is going to try to say that it was real, and it's called The Resurrection, the movie. And as I said, it is a movie that I will not be going to see. So, Tills nästa gång. Good hälsa.